stars had never seemed so cold. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon's End, watching the blue marble of Earth shrink in the rear display. Behind them, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council grew smaller with each passing second. Ahead lay only the endless black of the outer rim, where no civilized species dared to venture. "Jump drive is charging, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from his station. His voice carried the same hollow tone that had infected the entire crew since the Council's verdict 3 days ago. "We'll be ready to make the transition in 10 minutes. Sarah nodded but said nothing. What was there to say? In the span of a single week, humanity had gone from being the newest member of the galactic community to its most wanted criminals. The evidence against them had been overwhelming, or so the Council claimed. Video footage of human ships attacking the peaceful Zentari colony world of Haven Prime. Quantum signatures that matched Earth's fleet perfectly. Communications intercepts that seemed to prove humanity had planned the massacre for months. It was all lies, of course. Sarah knew this with absolute certainty, because she had been commanding the Earth Defense Force when the attack supposedly happened. Every human ship had been accounted for, every captain vouched for by their crews. But the Council had not been interested in human testimony. They had seen what they wanted to see, heard what they wanted to hear. The attack on Haven Prime had killed 3 million innocent Zentari civilians. Someone had to pay for that crime, and humanity made a convenient scapegoat. "Captain," called Ensign Park from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet. They're demanding our surrender." "Ignore it," Sarah replied. "We've heard enough of their demands." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's engines. The Horizon's End was not a warship, but a deep space exploration vessel, one of only a handful of human ships that had been outside Council space when the verdict came down. The rest of Earth's fleet had been destroyed or captured. The planet itself was under quarantine, its population forbidden from leaving their homeworld. Humanity's brief time among the stars was over before it had truly begun. "Jump drive ready, Captain," Torres announced. Sarah took one last look at the tactical display. 47 Council ships pursued them, led by the massive dreadnought Voice of Justice. The Council wanted to make sure that every last human was accounted for, every witness to their hasty trial silenced. They could not allow word of their questionable evidence to spread to other species. "Where to, Captain?" asked the navigation officer. Sarah had been dreading this question. The Horizon's End carried 847 souls, all that remained of humanity's presence in the galaxy. They were scientists, explorers, diplomats, and their families. None of them were soldiers, though that might have to change. "Set course for the Void Nebula," she said finally. "Best speed." The Void Nebula was a massive cloud of dark matter and cosmic dust located in the galaxy's outer rim. Sensors could not penetrate its depths, and the strange energy fields inside made communication impossible. It was a place where ships went to disappear forever. It was the perfect place for humanity to hide. The Void Nebula? Torres looked up from his station in surprise. "Captain, that's a one-way trip. The radiation levels alone will kill us within a year." "Maybe," Sarah agreed, "but staying here will definitely kill us. At least in the nebula we have a chance." The jump drive engaged with a deep thrumming sound that vibrated through the ship's hull. Reality twisted around them as they entered hyperspace, leaving normal space behind. When they emerged 36 hours later, they were farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled. The Void Nebula filled their forward screens like a wall of roiling darkness. Streams of purple and green energy danced within its depths, beautiful and deadly. Long-range sensors confirmed what they already knew. No other ships were in the area. No one came to the Void Nebula voluntarily. "Take us in," Sarah ordered. "Reduce speed to 1/4 impulse and maintain shields at maximum." As they entered the nebula's outer edge, the ship's lights flickered. Strange energies played across their hull, testing their defenses. The radiation counters began to climb, though not as quickly as Torres had predicted. Perhaps the ship's shielding would hold longer than expected. "Captain," called Dr. Elizabeth Reeves from the science station. She was the expedition's chief researcher, a woman who had spent her life studying the mysteries of space. "I'm detecting something unusual about these energy fields. They're not entirely natural." "Explain," Sarah said. "The patterns are too regular, too structured. It's almost as if something is controlling them, shaping them." Dr. Reeves frowned at her readings. There are also pockets of space within the nebula where the radiation levels drop significantly. We might be able to survive longer than we thought. Sarah felt the first spark of hope she had experienced in days. How much longer? If we can find one of these pockets and establish a base there, perhaps indefinitely. The energy fields might even provide us with power if we can learn to harness them. Then that's what we'll do, Sarah decided. We'll find a safe harbor in this storm and make it our home. Humanity may be exiled from the galaxy, but we're not dead yet. As the horizon's end disappeared into the swirling depths of the void nebula, Sarah made a silent promise. Someday, when they were strong enough, when they had learned the truth about Haven Prime, humanity would return to the galaxy. They would clear their name and make those responsible pay for their crimes. They would build new ships, better ships, ships designed not for exploration but for war, and when they were ready, they would emerge from the darkness like an avenging angel, bringing justice to those who had wronged them. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake in exiling humanity. Someday they would learn just how terrible. But for now they had to survive. In the cold embrace of the void nebula, the last free humans began their long wait for the day of reckoning that would surely come. 300 years had passed since the horizon's end disappeared into the void nebula. The galaxy had moved on, as galaxies tend to do. New wars had been fought. New alliances formed, new species discovered. The name human appeared only in historical records, listed among the extinct races that had once threatened galactic peace. The Council no longer worried about the scattered remnants of humanity. How could they? No ship that entered the void nebula had ever returned. The cosmic storm was considered one of the galaxy's most dangerous phenomena, a graveyard where even the bravest explorers feared to venture. They were wrong. Deep within the nebula's heart, where the energy storms raged strongest and the darkness was complete, humanity had not merely survived, they had thrived. Commander Marcus Cross stood in the observation deck of Haven Station, watching the construction crews put the finishing touches on their greatest achievement. The ship hung in space before him like a dark promise, its angular hull drinking in the nebula's purple light. It was beautiful in the way that predators were beautiful, sleek and deadly and utterly without mercy. They had named it the Defiance. "Impressive, isn't it?" said Director Amanda Price as she joined him at the viewing window. As the leader of the Haven Colony's military development program, she had overseen every aspect of the warship's construction. 15 years of work and we're finally ready. Marcus nodded, unable to take his eyes off the ship. The Defiance was massive, nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, but its size was not what made it remarkable. Every line of its design spoke of lessons learned in 3 centuries of exile. It incorporated technologies that the galaxy had never seen, born from humanity's desperate struggle to survive in the most hostile environment imaginable. "The power core?" he asked, fully operational. "The nebula energy conversion system is working beyond our best predictions. We're generating more power than a dozen Council dreadnoughts combined." Amanda's voice carried a note of pride that was impossible to miss. "The weapon systems are ready for testing, and the hull can withstand anything the galaxy can throw at us." Marcus smiled grimly. The hull was indeed remarkable. Forged from materials found only in the nebula's depths, it was stronger than any armor the Council possessed. The weapons were even more impressive. Humanity had learned to harness the same energies that had once threatened to kill them, turning the nebula's fury into tools of war. "What's our population now?" Marcus asked. "Just over 2 million souls across all our settlements," Amanda replied. "We've come a long way from the 800 survivors who first entered the nebula." Indeed they had. The energy pockets that Dr. Reeves had discovered all those years ago had proven to be more than safe harbors. They were windows into the nebula's true nature, gateways to a network of stable spaces where human civilization could take root. Over the centuries, dozens of colonies had been established, each one hidden deep within the cosmic storm. The colonists had adapted to their harsh environment in ways that would have amazed their ancestors. Children born in the nebula could sense the energy patterns that surrounded them, reading the cosmic currents like their forebears had once read ocean tides. Engineers had learned to build with materials that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Scientists had unlocked secrets of physics that the Council's greatest minds had never imagined. Most importantly, they had never forgotten why they were there. "Have we received word from the reconnaissance teams?" Marcus asked. Amanda's expression grew serious. "The probe ships returned yesterday. The galaxy hasn't changed much. The Council still rules through fear and propaganda. The Zentari still claim that humanity was responsible for the Haven Prime massacre, and the real culprits are still out there, still free. Marcus clenched his fists. The search for the truth about Haven Prime had consumed humanity for 3 centuries. Probe ships, disguised to look like debris or asteroids, had infiltrated Council spacetime and again. Slowly, carefully, they had gathered evidence. They had identified the real perpetrators, learned their motives, uncovered the conspiracy that had led to humanity's exile. The hegemony of Salth had been responsible for the massacre. Their ships had been disguised with human quantum signatures, their crews had spoken with human voices, and their attack had been timed perfectly to frame Earth for the crime. The Salth were a predatory species that fed on the suffering of others, and they had grown tired of competing with humanity for the Council's attention. The massacre had served 2 purposes. It had eliminated millions of Zentari civilians who were blocking Salth expansion into their territory, and it had removed humanity from the galactic stage entirely. It was a masterpiece of military deception that had fooled even the Council's best investigators. But they had not fooled humanity forever. "It's time," Marcus said quietly. 300 years is long enough. "The galaxy needs to know the truth." Amanda nodded. "The crew is ready. Captain Rodriguez has been preparing for this mission her entire life. She knows what's at stake." Through the viewing window, they could see figures in environmental suits moving across the Defiance's hull, making final preparations for departure. Soon the ship would leave the only home that most of its crew had ever known, venturing out into a galaxy that considered their species extinct. Marcus thought about Captain Sarah Chen, the woman who had led humanity into exile. She had died peacefully in her sleep 50 years ago, but not before seeing the first foundations of Haven Station laid. She had lived long enough to know that her sacrifice had not been in vain, that humanity would survive to fight another day. Now that day had come. "What's our first target?" Amanda asked. Marcus smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "New Salth, the hegemony's capital world. It's time we introduced ourselves to our old friends. They've enjoyed 3 centuries of prosperity built on our suffering. I think it's time they paid the price." The Defiance was more than just a warship. It was humanity's declaration that they were done hiding, done running, done accepting the guilt for crimes they had never committed. It was a promise that the innocent blood spilled at Haven Prime would finally be avenged. The galaxy had cast humanity out, believing them to be monsters. Soon they would learn what real monsters looked like when cornered and given 3 centuries to perfect their art of war. The exile was ending. The reckoning was about to begin. The Salth system had been peaceful for over 2 centuries. Its 3 worlds gleamed like jewels in the light of their orange star, protected by the most advanced defense network that the hegemony could build. Orbital stations bristled with weapons, patrol fleets moved in careful formations, and sensor arrays watched every approach vector with mechanical precision. None of it mattered. Admiral Kelth stood in the command center of Orbital Defense Platform 7, watching his instruments with growing confusion. Every sensor in the system was screaming warnings, but they made no sense. A massive gravity signature was approaching from the direction of the Void Nebula, something larger than anything in their databases. "Status report," Kelth demanded. "Sir, we're detecting a single ship, but the readings are impossible," his tactical officer replied. The young Salth's tentacles writhed with nervous energy. "It's showing a mass displacement of nearly 2 kilometers, but it's moving faster than our fastest interceptors." "That's impossible. Nothing that large can move that quickly, sir. It's dropping out of hyperspace. Reality twisted 3 million kilometers from New Salth, and the Defiance materialized in normal space like a dark angel of vengeance. The ship's hull seemed to drink in the system's starlight, its angular surfaces deflecting sensor beams and creating strange shadows on nearby asteroid fragments. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of humanity's first warship, watching the Salth homeworld grow larger on her main screen. She was 3rd-generation Haven-born, daughter of colonists who had never seen Earth, but she carried the memories of her people like a sacred flame. "All stations report ready." "Captain," announced Commander Singh from the tactical station. "Weapons are charged, shields are at maximum, and the crew is at battle stations." "Very good," Elena replied. "Open a channel to the planetary government. It's time we introduced ourselves." The Defiance had not tried to hide its approach. Stealth was not the purpose of this mission. They wanted the Salt to see them coming. Wanted them to feel the same terror that humanity had felt 3 centuries ago, when their worlds burned and their people died. Channel open. Captain? Elena stepped forward, knowing that her words would be recorded and transmitted across the galaxy within hours. The exile was ending not with whispers, but with a declaration that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. People of the Salt hegemony, she began, her voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries of righteous anger. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the human warship Defiance. We have returned to collect a debt that has been outstanding for far too long. On New Salt, alarms began to wail. In government buildings across the planet, officials who had thought humanity was extinct scrambled to understand what they were seeing. The impossible had happened. The dead had risen from their graves. You may be wondering how we survived your masterful deception, Elena continued. How we endured 300 years in the Void Nebula, while you enjoyed the prosperity that our exile bought you. The answer is simple. We learned. We adapted. We became something that you never expected us to become. The Defiance began to accelerate toward the inner system, ignoring the frantic signals from Salth defense platforms. Warning shots flashed harmlessly off its hull, absorbed by armor that had been forged in the heart of a cosmic storm. We know the truth about Haven Prime, Elena announced. We know that it was your ships that murdered 3 million innocent Zentari. We know that you used stolen human quantum signatures to frame us for your crimes. We have the evidence and we have the witnesses. Admiral Kelth watched in horror as his most powerful weapons had no effect on the approaching ship. Plasma cannons that could crack the hull of a battlecruiser simply vanished against the human vessel's strange armor. Missile volleys were intercepted by point defense systems that moved faster than his sensors could track. Sir, should we evacuate the platform? Asked his tactical officer. Kelth's tentacles curled in defeat. It won't matter. They're not here to destroy us. They're here to send a message he was right. The Defiance could have obliterated every defense platform in the system within minutes, but that was not its purpose. Instead, it took up position in orbit around New Salth, its weapons trained on the planet's major cities. The message was clear. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the helpless victims they had once been. We demand the immediate surrender of Supreme Commander Vexith and his senior staff, Elena announced. They will be turned over to galactic authorities to stand trial for their crimes. We also demand full reparations for the damage done to the human species and a public confession of guilt, broadcast to every world in the galaxy. On the planet below, Supreme Commander Vexith stared at the tactical display with a mixture of disbelief and terror. The human ship hung above his world like a sword of judgment, and he knew that 3 centuries of lies were finally catching up with him. How many ships do they have? He asked his military advisor. Just 1, sir. But sir, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. Our entire defense fleet can't scratch its paint. Vexith's mind raced through his options. He could refuse the human demands, but that would mean watching his homeworld burn. He could try to negotiate. But what did he have to offer a species that had survived 3 centuries in hell? He could call for help from the Council. But they were light years away and would never arrive in time. Get me a channel to the human ship, he said finally. Elena's image appeared on the main screen of the planetary command center. She looked exactly like what she was, a warrior born and raised for this moment, tempered by centuries of exile and hardened by the knowledge of her people's innocence. Commander Vexith, she said, I was hoping you would still be alive to see this day. What do you want? Vexith demanded. Justice, Elena replied simply. Something that has been denied to my people for 300 years. You have exactly 1 hour to comply with our demands. After that, we will begin orbital bombardment of your military installations. If you continue to resist, we will expand our target list. The Council will never allow this, Vexith threatened. You're outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. Elena smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The Council couldn't stop us 3 centuries ago when we were weak and unprepared. Do you really think they can stop us now? She was right, and Vexith knew it. The human ship represented technology that was generations ahead of anything the galaxy possessed. Worse, it represented a species that had been forged in the crucible of cosmic fury, shaped by centuries of exile into something that the galaxy was unprepared to face. 1 hour, Commander, Elena repeated. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving Vexith alone with his thoughts and his fears. Outside his window, the human warship waited in the darkness of space, patient as death itself. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's exile was over, and their day of reckoning had finally arrived. The Defiance had come home, and it had not come alone. Behind it, hidden in the depths of the Void Nebula, an entire civilization waited for the signal to emerge. Humanity's long exile was ending, but their revenge was just beginning. The council chambers had not seen such chaos in over 1,000 years. Representatives from dozens of species shouted accusations across the great circular floor, while holographic displays showed the impossible sight of a human warship holding an entire star system hostage. Chancellor Morvac, the ancient Zentari who had led the council for the past 2 centuries, struck his ceremonial gong repeatedly until order was restored. His scaled hands trembled slightly as he gestured for silence. "We are here to address the crisis in the Solth system," he announced. "The species we believed extinct has returned with demands that threaten the very foundation of our civilization." Ambassador Thresh of the Corvan Federation leaned forward in his seat. "How is this possible? Our records clearly show that humanity was responsible for the Haven Prime massacre." "They were exiled justly, were they?" interrupted a new voice. Every head in the chamber turned toward the main display screen as Captain Elena Rodriguez materialized in holographic form. She stood on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by technology that made even the Council's most advanced systems look primitive. "I am Captain Elena Rodriguez speaking for the human species," she said calmly. "We are transmitting from orbit around New Solth, where we have taken Supreme Commander Vexith into custody. He has confessed to his crimes." The chamber erupted in protests and demands for explanation. Chancellor Morvac struck his gong again. "You have no authority here, human. Release Commander Vexith immediately and surrender yourself for judgment." Elena's expression did not change. "I think you'll find that we are no longer the helpless refugees you cast out 3 centuries ago. We have evidence of Solth complicity in the Haven Prime massacre, and we demand a full investigation." "Impossible," declared Ambassador Thresh. "The evidence against humanity was overwhelming." "Evidence that was fabricated," Elena replied. "Commander Vexith has provided us with detailed records of Operation Silent Strike, the Solth military plan to frame humanity for their attack on Haven Prime. Would you like to see them?" Without waiting for permission, Elena activated a data transmission. The Council's main display filled with documents, video recordings, and communication logs. The evidence was damning and complete. It showed Solth ships being fitted with human quantum signature generators, Solth officers practicing human speech patterns, and most shocking of all, recordings of Solth leaders planning the massacre in vivid detail. Chancellor Morvac stared at the evidence in horror. As one of the survivors of Haven Prime, he had lost family members in the attack. For 3 centuries he had carried hatred for the humans who he believed had murdered his people. Now that hatred crumbled as the truth was revealed. "This is fabricated," protested Ambassador Kaleth of the Solth hegemony. "Humans are known for their deception. Are we?" Elena asked. "Then explain this." The display changed to show Supreme Commander Vexith himself, restrained but unharmed aboard the Defiance. His tentacles writhed with shame as he spoke. "I confess to my crimes," he said in a broken voice. "The attack on Haven Prime was planned and executed by Solth forces under my command. We used stolen human technology to disguise our ships and frame humanity for our actions. The blood of 3 million Zentari is on my hands, not theirs." The confession hit the council chamber like a physical blow. Representatives who had voted for humanity's exile sat in stunned silence. The moral foundation of their government had just been shattered. "Why?" Chancellor Morvac asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you murder my people?" Vexith's confession continued. "The Zentari controlled territory that the hegemony wanted for expansion. The humans were becoming too influential in the council, challenging our political dominance. One attack solved both problems. We eliminated the Zentari resistance and removed humanity from the galactic stage permanently." Elena let the words hang in the air before speaking again. 3 million innocent lives lost. An entire species exiled for crimes they didn't commit. Centuries of suffering and exile, all for the Solth hegemony's political convenience. Ambassador Thresh found his voice. "Even if this is true, what do you want from us? Humanity was exiled by lawful council decree. What we want, Elena said, is justice, full pardons for all human crimes, reparations for 3 centuries of exile, and most importantly, the truth broadcast to every world in the galaxy. And if we refuse? Chancellor Morvac asked. Elena's smile was cold as space itself. Then the galaxy will learn what humanity became during our exile. You cast us out believing we were monsters. You have no idea what real monsters look like. As if summoned by her words, the tactical display showed new contacts emerging from hyperspace throughout the galaxy. One by one, human ships began appearing in orbit around major council worlds. They were smaller than the Defiance, but still impossibly advanced, their strange hulls reflecting the light of alien suns. How many ships do you have? Ambassador Thresh demanded. Enough, Elena replied. 3 centuries gave us time to build, to plan, to prepare. We are no longer the species you remember. We have become something that the galaxy has never seen before. The truth was even more staggering than the Council could imagine. Humanity had not just survived in the Void Nebula. They had evolved. The cosmic energies that should have killed them had instead changed them, enhanced them, made them into something greater than they had been before. Their ships were powered by forces that the Council couldn't understand. Their weapons could channel the fury of cosmic storms. Their armor was forged from materials that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Most importantly, their people had been tempered by 3 centuries of exile into something harder and more determined than any species the galaxy had known. You have a choice, Elena announced. Accept our demands and begin the process of making amends for your crimes. Or resist, and learn why humanity survived when every other species would have perished. Chancellor Morvac looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. Fear was written on every face. The humans had returned with power beyond imagination, and they held the moral authority of the wrongfully accused. What guarantee do we have that you won't seek revenge? He asked. You have our word, Elena replied. Humanity has never been a cruel species. We seek justice, not genocide. But make no mistake, we will have justice. The only question is whether it comes through negotiation or through force. The Chancellor stood slowly, his aged frame bearing the weight of centuries of guilt. The Council will need time to deliberate. You have 24 hours, Elena said. After that, we will assume that you have chosen to resist and we will act accordingly. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, human ships waited in the darkness of space, patient as death itself. The galaxy's day of reckoning had arrived, and there was nowhere left to run. The exile was over. Now came the accounting. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Captain Elena Rodriguez walked through the corridors of Unity Station, the massive space facility that now served as humanity's embassy to the galactic community. Through the viewport windows, she could see ships from dozens of species docked at the station's arms, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible just months before. The integration had not been easy. After the Council's surrender and the public revelation of the truth about Haven Prime, the galaxy had erupted in controversy. Some species had welcomed humanity's return with relief and apologies. Others had resisted, clinging to old prejudices and fears. A few had even attempted military action, testing the limits of human patience. Those tests had not gone well for the aggressors. Captain Rodriguez called Director Chen as she approached. The elderly woman was one of the few people aboard Unity Station who remembered Earth, having been a child when the Horizon's End had fled into the Void Nebula. The Council representatives are ready for the final ceremony. Elena nodded and followed Chen to the station's main assembly hall. The vast chamber was filled with delegates from across the galaxy, all gathered to witness the official end of humanity's exile. At the center of the room stood a monument made from metal salvaged from the ruins of Haven Prime, a reminder of the innocent lives that had been lost and the price of galactic injustice. Chancellor Morvac stood at the podium, his aged frame bearing the weight of his species' grief and humanity's forgiveness. Behind him, the reformed Galactic Council waited in solemn silence. The Salth representatives were notably absent, their hegemony having collapsed under the weight of its revealed crimes. Today marks the end of the greatest injustice in galactic history, the Chancellor began. 300 years ago, this council condemned an innocent species based on fabricated evidence and prejudice. We cast them out into the void, believing we had rid ourselves of a threat to galactic peace. He paused, looking directly at Elena. We were wrong. Humanity was never the threat. Our inability to see the truth, our willingness to accept convenient lies, our failure to investigate properly, these were the real threats to galactic peace. Elena listened to the formal apology with mixed emotions. Part of her was satisfied to hear the words that her people had waited 3 centuries to hear. Another part of her mourned for all those who had not lived to see this day, including Captain Sarah Chen, whose sacrifice had made humanity's survival possible. But from this tragedy has come something greater than we could have imagined, the Chancellor continued. Humanity's exile did not destroy them. Instead, it forged them into something remarkable. They returned to us not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as teachers offering to share the knowledge they gained in the darkness. It was true. The technologies that humanity had developed in the Void Nebula were revolutionizing galactic civilization. Medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries, energy systems that could power entire worlds without environmental damage, defensive technologies that made war itself increasingly obsolete. Most importantly, humanity had brought back something the galaxy had lost: hope. Therefore, Chancellor Morvac announced, by unanimous vote of the Reformed Galactic Council, humanity is not only pardoned for all alleged crimes, but is invited to take a permanent seat on the Council as a founding member of our new government. The assembly erupted in applause. Elena stepped forward to accept the ceremonial datapad that would restore humanity's citizenship in the galactic community. As she held the device, she thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. The Defiant still hung in space near Unity Station, a reminder of humanity's strength and determination. But it was no longer alone. The hidden fleet had emerged from the Void Nebula, dozens of ships carrying colonists eager to reclaim their place among the stars. New human settlements were being established on worlds throughout the galaxy, each one a testament to their species' resilience. I accept this restoration on behalf of all humanity, Elena said, her voice carrying to every corner of the assembly hall. But I also accept it as a reminder that justice delayed is not justice denied. We must never again allow fear and prejudice to override truth and evidence. After the ceremony, Elena made her way to the station's observation deck. Earth hung in the distance, blue and beautiful and free once again. The quarantine had been lifted months ago, and ships now traveled freely between humanity's homeworld and their new colonies. Commander Singh joined her at the viewport. Any regrets, Captain? Elena considered the question carefully. 3 centuries of exile had cost humanity dearly. Entire generations had lived and died without seeing their ancestral home. Countless scientific and cultural achievements had been lost to isolation. The price of the galaxy's mistake had been almost beyond calculation. But they had survived. More than that, they had grown stronger. No regrets, she said finally. We lost much, but we gained more. The galaxy needed to learn that there are consequences for injustice. We needed to learn that we're stronger than we ever imagined. She turned away from the viewport and headed toward the docking bay where the Defiance waited. There was still work to do. Other species throughout the galaxy faced their own injustices, their own exile from the community of civilized worlds. Humanity had learned how to survive in the darkness and emerge stronger. Now it was time to teach others the same lessons. The exile was over, but humanity's real journey was just beginning. They had returned to the galaxy not as the same species that had been cast out 3 centuries ago, but as something greater. They had become the guardians of justice, the voice of the wrongfully accused, the hand that lifted up the fallen. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Elena reflected as she boarded her ship, was exactly as it should be. In the depths of space where the Void Nebula still raged with cosmic fury, new expeditions were already being planned. The mysterious energies that had shaped humanity's destiny held secrets that could benefit all galactic civilization. What had once been a place of exile would become a beacon of discovery. The stars themselves seemed brighter as humanity took its place once again among the civilized species of the galaxy. Justice had been served, truth had been revealed, and the long night of exile was finally over. The dawn of a new age had begun.